Hello and welcome to Continental Prime here on News Center Television, reaching you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. The headlines for this are: Nigerian resident doctors call off their 2-month-old strike. Abiy Ahmed is sworn in for another 5-year term as Ethiopia's prime minister. Kenya launches platform to provide credible information on COVID-19. Details shortly. For our viewers across Africa and the rest of the world, this is Continental's Prime here on News Center Television. I'm Sulaiman Alede. The National Association of Resident Doctors in Nigeria has suspended its 2-month-old nationwide strike. 56 officials voted to suspend the industrial action, while 28 opted for the strike to continue. The resident doctors had embarked on the nationwide strike on August 2 to protest several issues, including non-payment of death benefits to families of members who died while treating COVID-19 patients, as well as non-payment of hazard allowance and arrears of salaries of members in various states. We continue with an update on the death toll from gunmen attacks in Nigeria's northwestern state of Kaduna, which has risen to 50 following the recovery of more corpses from last week's killings. Now, Commissioner for Internal Security and Home Affairs Samuel Arwan said in a statement on Monday that the fatalities from the September 26 attack on the Medamai village of Kaura local government area rose to 38 as the troops found 4 more corpses, while that of Zango Kataf local government area rose by 12. He says troops are still carrying out search and rescue operations in the area, suggesting the death toll might still rise further. In the meantime, troops of the Nigerian Army's operations Hadin Kai has foiled an attack by fighters of the Islamic State West Africa province ISWAP in Damboa in the northeastern state of Borno. Reports say the terrorists made futile attempts to access a facility housing their surrendered members, but retreated when confronted with the superior firepower of the troops. The army assured the people of Damboa and across the country to go about their regular businesses, adding that the vigilant troops will continue to provide security of lives and property. Nigeria's lower chamber has held a public hearing on the ratification and enforcement of the ECOWAS Convention on Small Arms and Light Weapons. At the hearing, lawmakers listened to submissions from the Nigerian Army, the Nigerian Police, the Immigration Service, and Importers Association of Nigeria. Stakeholders present say they will support any legislation aimed at tackling the proliferation of small arms and light weapons within the sub-region, which has become a threat to Nigeria's internal security. They asked Parliament to go all out to ensure the menace of small arms and light weapons is checked for good. While still on security, troops of the 81 Division of the Nigerian Army, including its affiliated formations and units in the southwestern states of Lagos and Ogun, have unveiled Exercise Stillwater. This is in line with Nigerian Army's training directive for the year. The exercise, which commenced on October 4, is expected to run till December 23 and will be jointly conducted by the Nigerian Navy, Nigerian Air Force, as well as other security agencies.
The days of the reign of criminality in several parts of Nigeria may soon become a thing of the past, as the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, has flagged off exercise Stillwater in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. Flagging off the exercise, the General Officer commanding 81 Division, Major General Lawrence Fejoko, explained that the exercise is replacing the Operation Crocodile Smile. These field training exercises are routines conducted yearly by the Nigerian Army designed to effectively check all forms of criminality and allow for free movement of persons, and equally provide a platform to sharpen the skills of participating troops on the conduct of internal security operations.
This exercise will also serve as a rehearsal on how to tackle criminal elements. That is all we do in our various classrooms, and now we are bringing it down to the field. I want to seize the opportunity to tell members of the public that there will be increased military movements by day and night, and I urge law-abiding citizens to go about their business without any fear.
The operations were designed to effectively check all forms of criminality and allow for free movement of persons during the Yuletide.
The setting of exercise Stillwater, which is premised largely on the conduct of military operations other than war, is to provide military aid to civil authority. Accordingly, the exercise is designed to curtail the activities of militants, bandits, armed robbers, cultists, hoodlums, illegal oil bunkers, and the likes within Lagos and environs.
The nationwide exercise, codenamed Golden Dawn, Enduring Peace and Stillwater, will involve the movement of troops and military equipment within Lagos and Ogun states in the southwestern region of Nigeria.
Leaving security matters now to our opening news, which is making headlines across Nigeria, west of Africa, that Nigeria's resident doctors have called off their strike action. Joining me now to talk more on the action of the doctors as well as the development is Dr. Tuyi Mebawodu. Good to have you join me on the news today.
Thank you, sir.
This is something Nigerians have been asking for, and I recall you've been here with us talking about the strike action. Now, tell us, did you see this coming?
Obviously, it will come. But the suddenness was not really expected, because what has happened is that, if you remember, the last NARD executive were insistent that governments must honor the memorandum of action, being signed since last year, and of course, which led to the beginning of the strike as at August 2nd, and lasted how many weeks? 9 weeks. Now, fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the new ESCO was coming in, and I can understand that the new ESCO wouldn't want to start their own regime with a strike. They needed to find a way to end the strike and find a way to renegotiate. But what should be important for all of us is this. We've had another space now, another space to look at the dynamics of the challenges facing the health system. Now, COVID didn't teach us anything, the prolonged strike didn't teach us anything, but again, the strike has been called off now. We hope that every stakeholder involved in health system will be able to look truly and say that, listen, we don't want a repeat. We don't want a situation whereby this new ESCO of National Association of Resident Doctors will also feel that, listen, the only thing the government understands is strike. Government should learn from this and then be able to move forward and stabilize the health system, because every strike has a way of depleting the confidence of the populace in health system. This was how we got to this situation whereby people don't want to patronize even the tertiary institutions, universities, federal government universities. They don't want to go to the private universities.
But again, it will look as if this was a wasted, venture. 2 months down the line, and well, the doctors are still where they were. Their demands haven't been met.
Again, it's not a wasted. For me, I won't see it as such, because again, you have to defer to some authorities, even in the medical system. You know that it's an apprenticeship system whereby you have to defer to your senior respect authorities. The Nigerian Medical Associations said that, listen, guys, call off the strike. Government is ready to do further work, give them an avenue, a hiatus to further talk and negotiate these things. And then if you look at it, because it must be a balance, here we are, patients are suffering, they're not getting requisite treatment. Doctors seems to be, we're at wit end on both sides. The labor minister was calling them his children, and then a lot of wrangling, a lot of bad management of labor issues with this strike. But again, there came an opportunity for us to rethink, because every disagreement, every case ends up in negotiation table. We're going to end up looking at ways to resolve this thing. I hope, my major concern is that I hope that the nation, the stakeholder, the government, everybody, even including national resident doctors, must have learned from this.
Absolutely. But again, Dr. Tui, do you think this is already a divided union? Because we have a new ESCO in place, and you look at the voting pattern, 56
to 28.
Yeah, to 28.
Yes. Yeah, again, there's still the strong force looking at it and feeling that, listen, we shouldn't have called off the strike. But again, you cannot pass problem from the previous executive to the current executive. They have to sit down and get the feeling and figure out how to renegotiate and think the thing. For me, for them to call off the strike is not unexpected. Let's be sincere, it's not unexpected. But the point is that as you go forward from this, it will now depend on the skill and assiduity of the new ESCO to figure out how to actually navigate this thing. It's actually, a lot of tendencies, a lot of challenges that may come into the whole thing. But we expect that going forward, government should have learned, especially the labor, Minister of Labor and the cohort, should have been able to understand strictly how to navigate a very challenging situation. We didn't learn it from COVID. I hope we learn it from this. If we don't learn from this, and these guys now, have to go on strike again, it won't be too tidy. And then we hope that this will have opened the opportunities for other stakeholders to figure out how to get really engaged with the health delivery system in this country. We hope so.
Quickly before we let you go, Dr. Tui, one of the key demands of the doctors is, caring for those that have gone, who lost their lives, caring for those who were down with COVID-19. And now that's a big one, because the memories of these colleagues of theirs must not be in vain. Did you get any word from the government if these people gone will be so honored and their families taken care of?
Yeah,
that's very important.
Yes, we're not getting any really serious commitment from the government, because government felt that, doctors are now turning the thing to a kind of blackmail for them. The perception of government of this doctor strike is so unfortunate. But what we're going to have is that there will be a lot of challenge, within the structure of NARD. We look up to the Nigerian Medical Association to be able to bridge the gap between the NARD and the government and see how to get a win-win situation on both sides. But I can tell you there are tendencies, and people will feel that, how can you come and then just call off the strike without us achieving much? So for me, it's not an end to industrial actions in the health sectors. It's going to take another format, and for each of those formats that comes, it further erodes the confidence of the populace in the health system. When are we going to get over this? We're going to get over this when we're going to sit down sincerely and look at the health system holistically. I feel that it concerns you and I, and move money and move human resources, and then be able to deeply discuss the issue of health system beyond strike. We should be looking at health system beyond strike, because again, strike is not adding values to us. And then we must be able to put our leadership to align with the health system available in the country and not just run away every time. If they're able to achieve this, it will be better for all of us.
Medical policy expert, Dr. Tui, many thanks for your time.
My pleasure every time.
Well, the Kogi state government has raised an alarm over attempts by several highly placed political figures to tarnish the image of the state government and the state governor. The State Commissioner for Information, Kingsley Faso, told journalists in that state that some people have been uncovered by vested interests to embark on a smear campaign ahead of the 2023 general elections. Faso says several bloggers have been recruited to accuse the state government of corruption and warned the media to be cautious and verify any information on the state before it is publicized.
It is unfortunate that some disgruntled political liabilities are still bent on launching the smear campaign on the person of His Excellency Alhaji Yahaya Bello and the government of Kogi State. Fresh on the heels of the discredited allegation against the Kogi State government by the AFCC, backed by some other powerful vested interests in the country, the Kogi State government is aware of several plots to paint her black in the public perception on a regular basis from now till 2023. Several bloggers and media guns for hire have been contracted on a retainership basis to regularly sully the public space with fantastical claims of embezzlement of public funds by Governor Yahaya Bello and his administration. Some of the figures that will be thrown around in the days, weeks, and months to come represent more money than the administration has ever seen together as at one time. We hope that you gentlemen of the press will be vigilant and activate your investigative offices before running with such fabricated and unfounded allegations.
Nigeria's Independent National Electoral Commission has assured residents of the southeastern state of Anambra that it will conduct a free and fair governorship elections by November 6. INEC's Commissioner for Information, Festus Okoye, told reporters in Abuja, Nigeria's capital, that the Commission has started an elaborate publicity campaign to assure residents of its preparedness. Okoye adds that the Commission is determined to ensure the votes of the electorate decide the next governor of the state. Staying in West Africa, security sources on Monday say militants killed at least 8 Burkina Faso soldiers and injured 5 others in an attack in the north of the country. The attack on the military detachment took place in the center north of Sanmantenga province early today. Now, the death toll could climb, according to the security sources. No group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Let's move to Central Africa, where 4 people have been killed after a motorcycle ran over a landmine in the Central African Republic's troubled northwest. An official said the incident happened near the commune of Yeme, located about 600 kilometers northwest of capital Bangui. UN humanitarian coordinator Denise Brown last month noted that 27 incidents involving explosive devices had been recorded in the country's west between January and August. Brown said the incidents left 14 civilians dead and 21 civilians, as well as 2 UN peacekeepers, wounded. Now, from the center, let's go to the east, where Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has been sworn in for another 5-year term after his party won the elections in June of 2020. Mr. Ahmed was first appointed Prime Minister in 2018 by the then ruling party, EPRDF, following anti-government protest. He formed the Prosperity Party in 2019, which scored a landslide win in June's elections that were boycotted by major opposition groups. He's expected to announce a new government on Monday. Now, the United Nations Mine Action Service has cleared about 41 explosive ordnances in Ungulere in central equatorial region of South Sudan. These landmines and explosives are the remnants of civil wars, and they pose a daily threat to women, children, and men in remote locations across the world's youngest country. The UN organization says it will continue to work to clear ordinances since 2004, during which about 45 million square meters of land containing explosives have been cleared so far.
In this particular village, we deployed one of our teams, UNMAS contracted teams, the development initiative, clearance asset who completed clearance only recently, and apart from removing number of mainly mortars and some projectiles from the village in between houses, they also located and safely removed and subsequently destroyed 12 60mm mortars that were buried somewhere in this football field. This is a very good example of how clearance can be put into good use. In this case, we cleared this football pitch, but we are clearing, when I say we, I mean UNMAS, our partners. We are clearing schools, we are clearing roads, we are clearing clinics, we are providing support not just to the mission but also to our humanitarian partners. And it just feels great being part of that.
The Safeground Initiative is a 5-year initiative that started in 2019 and ends in 2023. The thematic area for this initiative, or for this campaign, is to turn minefields into playing fields. So with that said, we see contaminated areas that are in close vicinities to schools or to playgrounds or where children convene, and we clear that contamination.
The Rwandan government is set to hire teachers from Zimbabwe as the government seeks to fix long-standing skills gaps and language barriers following multiple reforms of its education sector. While it is not yet clear how many teachers the country would source and timelines, President Paul Kagame says the country needs quality teachers urgently as the two countries explore mutual beneficial business. Opportunities as schools are set to reopen in Rwanda on October 11. Earlier, we spoke to our Zimbabwean correspondent Lala Ngwenya, who highlighted the implications of the move.
The teacher unions are calling for government to hear out their pleas and give them what they want. They've been asking for the minimum paid teacher to receive $520 going up. And this is the money that teachers used to use when Zimbabwe was using the US dollar 100%. Earlier, I spoke to Opet Masaraure, who is the president of Amalgamated Rural Teachers of Zimbabwe, and this is what he had to say.
We have a shortage of almost 90,000 teachers, with the teacher-learner ratio ballooning up to 1:120. Even if we're going to absorb all the teachers who are out of employment, we'll still have a shortage of teachers in Zimbabwe. What the government of Zimbabwe should focus on is to become a competitive employer so that we do not suffer the imminent brain drain which is going to come through. We have been losing teachers on a daily basis, and we want this to come to an end, and it can only be stopped by remunerating these teachers well so that we retain them in our schools. Our public education is on the verge of collapsing because of an acute teacher shortage. If we are going to be entering into an agreement of exporting teachers, we should be working on a way of mass production of the teacher resource from our teacher institution.
Remember, Rwanda is quite a favorite right now in the world, and they are doing quite big even in the Commonwealth. And Zimbabwe actually is counting on Rwanda to help with the negotiations in readmitting Zimbabwe back into the Commonwealth.
Let's go to North Africa, where investigations have indicated that several parties to the conflicts in Libya violated international humanitarian law and potentially committed war crimes. This is according to a report by a UN fact-finding mission led by Mohamed Oja. The report specifically accused mercenaries from Wagner, a Russian security firm, of shooting prisoners, thus committing the war crimes of murder. It also said Wagner personnel had left behind a computer tablet with a map showing locations where landmines were planted near civilian buildings in areas abandoned by retreating Eastern forces. The three-member panel's report was based on hundreds of documents, satellite imagery, interviews with more than 150 people and investigations in Libya, Tunisia and Italy. You're watching News Central, Continental Prime. Coming up, Nigeria records 0 COVID-19 death in almost 2 months. More on this after the break. Stay with us. You're welcome. If you're just joining us, you're watching Continental Prime here on News Central Television, reaching you live from Nigeria's economic capital, Lagos. Now, accelerating urban action for a carbon-free world. That's the theme for this year's World Habitat Day, which highlights the issue of poverty and pledges to create shelter for all and indeed overcomes equality issue. Now, with an estimated 20.25% of the world's population living in an inadequate shelter, there is a need to seek ways to bridge the housing gap. News Central's Chidinma Wonsu tells us more.
World Habitat Day is commemorated every year on the first Monday of October. It is a day set aside by the United Nations to promote the basic rights towards adequate shelter and housing for everyone. According to the United Nations, around 1.8 billion people were already living in slums and informal settlements, inadequate housing, or in homelessness in cities across the world before the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic. It is a day to remind all the world citizens of their duty towards shaping the future of cities and towns.
Urban areas produce around 70% of these carbon emissions. So we must appeal to our leaders and to the African leaders to really start to retrofit and to redesign our urban area developments so that we rely less on fossil fuel-fired energy systems for cooling. We can rely more on natural cooling systems, less of vehicular traffic when we start to implement things like electric trains, less of those things that are damaging to the environment, and particularly re-greening the cities.
The team recognizes that cities are responsible for some 70% of global carbon dioxide emissions, with transport, buildings, energy, and waste management accounting for the bulk of urban greenhouse gas emissions.
World Habitat Day provides an international opportunity to raise awareness and push for immediate action through events, discussions, and campaigns. And this year, in the run-up to the International Climate Change Summit COP26, we need immediate action in developing and implementing zero carbon plans.
The endeavor is to come up with appropriate shelter position, highlight the plight of the homeless, and improve human settlements, as well as the quality of urban life. When steps are taken to heal Mother Earth, it is a right step to heal humans. Wishing you a very happy World Habitat Day.
The news continues with updates on the coronavirus, with Nigeria recording 0 deaths for the first time since August 21. However, 74 new infections were recorded during the period under review. The Nigeria Center for Disease Control, in its daily update on Monday, said the additional 74 infections indicate a decline from the 138 cases reported on Saturday. The NCDC says the additional cases were recorded in 9 states, with Lagos reporting the highest infections of the day with 36 new cases. Now, Senegal has recorded only 2 new daily COVID-19 infections, which is the lowest number since the pandemic reached the country, and 2 months after the rate of new cases hovered at record highs. Spokesperson for the country's health ministry, Ngone Ngam, announced the figures today as the West African nation emerges from its deadliest wave yet. 20,000 of its 73,800 cases and 250 of its 1,860 deaths were recorded in July alone. Now, Rwanda's fight against the coronavirus has received a boost after the country received 857,000 doses of COVID-19 vaccine. The shipment arrived at Kigali International Airport on Monday and was received by the Director of Vaccination Program, Hassan Simbomana. So far, about 2.13 million doses have been administered, with the number of second doses currently standing at 1.68 million. The East African country had recorded 97,870 COVID-19 infections, with 1,283 fatalities. Kenya's Health Ministry has launched an information portal aimed at providing media professionals with a one-stop shop on factual, verifiable, and credible information on the pandemic in the East African country. Kenya's Health Minister Mutahi Kagwe launched the portal on Monday, and he said the new portal will play an important role in helping the public obtain the correct information about the virus and the vaccines. He asked members of the Fourth Estate to report objectively around the pandemic, including encouraging Kenyans to go for the vaccine. The launch comes amid COVID-19 misinformation, which has presented a challenge in the global efforts against the pandemic. Now, figures released today by the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention has shown that the number of confirmed COVID-19 cases on the continent reached 8.33 million this afternoon. The Africa CDC also said the death toll from the pandemic across the continent stands at 212,322. The agency says about 7.68 million patients across the continent have recovered from the disease so far. It adds that South Africa, Morocco, Tunisia, and Ethiopia are among the countries with the most cases on the continent. Now, away from the pandemic, Nigeria's federal government has expressed concern over the increase in cases of cyber crimes targeting women and girls. This was during the launch of a national cyber security empowerment program for women and girls with the theme Cyber Warfare Project, and of course with the hashtag #BeCyberSmart. Experts at the session say 8 out of 10 women and girls in Nigeria do not have the skills and knowledge to identify cyber criminals. They say this has continued to make more women and girls vulnerable to online sexual predators and fraudsters. Well, you're watching News Central Continent's Prime. Still ahead, the European Union has been called to do more following the release of the Pandora Papers. We'll bring you details of this story and more when we return. Join us again. The European Union must do more to combat tax evasion and aggressive tax planning, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said Monday in the wake of revelations in the Pandora Papers. Speaking during a visit to Helsinki, von der Leyen condemned the practices brought to light in the huge data leak. The practices, which detailed how 35 current and former world leaders have used offshore tax havens to stash assets worth hundreds of millions of dollars. The documents, known as the Pandora Papers, were obtained by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists and released in stories by media partners, including The Washington Post, the BBC, The Guardian, and Nigeria's Premium Times. Allegations range from corruption to money laundering and tax avoidance.
Tax evasion and aggressive tax planning is completely unacceptable. And We have in the European Union some of the highest tax transparency standards in the world, but as we see, it's not enough. More work is needed, and that's why we will come forward with a proposal on the misuse of shell companies for tax purposes, and this will be done till the end of the year. So we'll come with an answer to the obvious problems that are still out there.
We head to North Africa, North America, where the United States President Joe Biden has called on Republican opponents reckless and dangerous for refusing to join Democrats in raising the U.S. debt limit, putting the world's biggest country at risk of imminent default. Biden says Republican obstruction could push the U.S. economy over a cliff. Speech. Biden's amping up the pressure on the GOP to get on board comes ahead of Senate Republicans planning to block another bill this week to raise the debt limit. The president says Democrats are trying to pass a straightforward debt limit hike on their own with 50 votes and no Republican support.
Be clear, not only are Republicans refusing to do their job, but threatening to use their power, to prevent us from doing our job, saving the economy from a catastrophic event. I think, quite frankly, it's hypocritical, dangerous, and disgraceful. Their obstruction and irresponsibility knows absolutely no bounds, excuse me, especially as we're clawing our way out of this pandemic. Raising the debt limit comes down to paying what we already owe, what has already been acquired, not anything new. It starts with a simple truth. The United States is a nation that pays its bills and always has. From its inception, we have never defaulted. So if we're going to make good on what's already been approved by previous Congresses and previous presidents and parties, we have to pay for it. Social Security benefits, the American people are promised, salaries for servicemen and women, benefits for veterans. We're going to have to raise the debt limit if we're going to meet those obligations. And raising the debt limit is usually a bipartisan undertaking, and it should be. That's what is not happening today.
A survey by the Kenyan Central Bank says that businesses in the country experienced increased activity in the third quarter of 2021 following the easing of COVID-19 restrictions. The study interviewed leaders in various sectors who noted that sales and orders rose compared to the first two quarters as they expressed optimism of further growth in quarter four. The optimism is mainly attributed to the containment of the COVID-19 pandemic and prospects for strong global recovery. The Apex Bank interviewed 230 private sector firms that account for about 74% of Kenya's gross domestic product. Lekon Onabanjo has the rest of the business news.
Hello and welcome to Business News on NC Continental Prime. I am Lekon Onabanjo. Libyan government says work has begun on the construction of an oil refinery in the south of the conflict-ridden desert country. The project will cost between $500 million and $600 million and become operational within 3 years, according to the head of Libya's state oil company, Mustafa Sanala. He said an annual income of $75 million was expected. Libyan leader Abdulhamid Biba, speaking at a ceremony in the capital Tripoli, said the project is important and this will bring about an effective start of construction of a refinery in the south. The refinery will be built near Al-Charara, a major oil field in the Obari region, which produces an average of some 300,000 barrels of oil a day. Meanwhile, the Tunis-Cairo air service will resume on November 2, 2021, according to the national carrier Tunis Air. The carrier will operate 2 flights per week on Tuesdays and Saturdays. In compliance with COVID-19 regulations, Tunis Air has specified that a negative PCR test with a result date not exceeding 72 hours with QR code is mandatory for all passengers aged 6 and above who are not vaccinated. A certificate of vaccination with QR code is also mandatory for all passengers vaccinated for at least 14 days. In other news, Kenya Airways has announced plans to increase the frequency of flights to London from Kenya, which was removed from the UK's red list. Kenya's state-owned airline will add 4 flights weekly, up from the current 2. Europe accounted for 20% of KQ's revenue last year, bringing in 10 billion Kenyan shillings out of the 62 billion Kenyan shillings that the airline posted. Kenya Airways attributed its losses to a sharp decline in summer bookings. The national carrier made a net loss of 11.5 billion Kenyan shillings in H1 2021 as compared to a net loss of 14.3 billion Kenyan shillings in H1 2020, a performance the airline blames on depressed demand occasioned by the impact of COVID-19 on its key markets. Let's also tell you that Kenya's weekly Mombasa tea auction held on September 27 and 28, 2021, had 8.3 million kilograms of tea offered for sale. The amount decreased from 8.8 million kilograms for the same period last year, but slightly increased from 8.1 million kilograms during the previous sale. Of all the tea offered for sale, 6.7 million kilograms was sold compared to 7.9 million kilograms for the same period last year and 7 million kilograms during the previous sale. The tea auction recorded an increase in prices, with a kilogram selling at an average price of $2.16 compared to $1.90 during the same period last year and $2.13 during the previous sale held on September 20 and 22, 2021. And elsewhere, real household spending in Ghana is expected to grow by 4.1% this year to 104.9 Ghanaian cedis. This is compared to a contraction of 1.1% last year. According to Fitch Solutions, the forecast in improving consumer spending this year is in line with the expected real growth rate of the economy by 4.8%. It pointed out that a successful vaccine rollout will aid the recovery of consumer spending growth in Ghana, as it will reduce the risk of further strict lockdown measures. It added that forecasts usually take into account risks that are highly likely to play out in 2021, including the easing of government support. A new global investigation exposing the offshore hideaways of some of the world's most powerful personalities is launching today after 2 years of discreet work by investigative journalists around the world. The project, known as Pandora Papers, is facilitated by the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, which obtained a trove of 11.9 million confidential files. The reporting, which is still ongoing, involves more than 600 journalists from 150 news organizations around the world. More updates on this is being revealed. And that's business news at this hour. I am Lekon Onobanjo. NC Continental Prime continues shortly.
For a look at what to expect in terms of sunshine and precipitation across the continent. As all others are. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Nigerian resident doctors have called off their 2-month-old strike. Abiy Ahmed has been sworn in for another 5-year term as Ethiopia's prime minister. And finally, we told you that Kenya has launched a platform to provide credible information on COVID-19. Do follow us on social media. We're at News Central TV. You can also download our mobile app on App Store and Play Store. You can also watch News Central live on Star Times Channel 274, AVO TV Channel 23, Vision 247, Free TV, as well as on YouTube. I'm Sulaiman Alede. Many thanks for watching.